Welcome everyone to our Arizona Peer and Family Career Academy March Lunch and Learn. This is a story of hope, family support edition. This is sponsored by Molina Cares Foundation. I am Haley Winterberg. I'm the Executive Director for the Arizona Peer and Family Career Academy. I'm so excited today to have a presenter, Michael Beltran, who is one of our PFCA trainers for many of our courses, who's just phenomenal, who's going to be sharing his story with you shortly. But before then, we're going to share just a brief little overview of who PFCA is and some Zoom basics. I know many of you are already familiar with Zoom, but just in case you aren't, we will be recording this session just so that way we can post it onto our YouTube channel for those who weren't able to join us this afternoon. And so please make sure you're mindful of that and be on mute when you are not sharing with us. Also, it definitely helps our presenters when they can see you and you join on video. It makes them feel like they are not presenting to a whole bunch of black screens and empty faces. So if you could join us, that would be fantastic. And then we will be utilizing the chat throughout this lunch and learn. And so we'd love for you to participate in that. You can do that at the bottom of your screen. There should be a chat button or in the little more options button. So starting off with that, we'd love for everybody to take just a moment to introduce yourself. We want to know who's with us this afternoon. So please show your name, your title, share if you're a peer or family support specialist, the organization you're coming from, and our icebreaker question of the day, who is your support person? So as I shared earlier, I am Haley Winterberg. I am our executive director here at the Arizona Peer and Family Career Academy. And my support person is my amazing husband. You know, he is truly my partner, not my partner in crime. And he really supports me in all of the chaos that is my life. There's always a lot going on with having 3 kids and being a caregiver to my grandfather, and he just supports through it all. So I'm incredibly grateful for him. And so I'd love to know, who do we have joining us? Oh, great. We've got John, who's a program assistant for Copa Health. Welcome, John. Glad to see you. We've got Sarah from the Paskiaki tribe. Welcome. We're glad you're here, even with no mic or camera. Hopefully you can still hear us. And Chaz from Access OIFA, welcome. Love to know who your support person is. We've got Denise Cox, who is the adult behavioral health member liaison for Health Choice. Welcome, Denise. Who is your support person? I'd love for you guys to participate as well. Thank you so much for joining us for this amazing lunch and learn. So, who is Arizona Peer and Family Career Academy? Our mission is to inspire recovery and wellness through professional development, continuing education in order to equip emerging leaders and strengthen the peer and family support workforce. All of that in short to say, we are here to truly support our peer and family support workforce and the amazing providers that provide this amazing service. I myself am a peer and family support specialist and provided both of those amazing services throughout our system over the years, and absolutely love the work that all of you are doing. It makes a difference. And some of the core work that we do is we offer trainings to our peer and family support specialists. And that includes a forensic support training for both peer support specialists, as well as we have a version for family support specialists. And that's focused on how do we break down the barriers and support individuals navigating the justice journey. We also have a self-care course because we know Burnout and compassion fatigue is real. The work that we do is incredibly hard. And so, how do we incorporate self care into the work that we're doing? We have a hope and healing course for the opioid use crisis. In 2020, there was over 100,000 lives lost. And so, it's incredibly important that we have the skills necessary to support individuals in navigating opioid use and find harm reduction and medicated assisted treatment and ways to support. Abilities, differences, and inclusions. This is a course to support families and family support specialists in navigating both the behavioral health and the developmental disability system, as the systems are incredibly complex. Effective advocacy. So how do we utilize our voice in the system effectively while maintaining our professionalism and make a difference, not just for our members, ourselves, our families that we're supporting, but also our system as a whole. And motivational leadership. This is how do we take the work that we're doing to become great supervisors? How do our supervisors really lead individuals with lived experience well? I know myself, when I was doing this work and I first became a family support specialist and a peer support specialist, they were like, oh, you're doing great at this work. Now you can supervise. And the first team I had was 15. I had no idea what I was doing as a supervisor, and I was not the best supervisor. And so I'm glad that we offer this course. So hopefully none of you have that experience as you're becoming supervisors. So you can start that role with having the experience and knowledge. It's a really fantastic course where we do a lot of group dialogue to really build each other up and make sure we have the skills necessary to lead in our field. And as many of you are here today, we have monthly lunch and learns. And so this is a great opportunity to freshen up our skills, connect with one another, and continue our learning journey together. We also have our peer-to-peer coaching program. This is a virtual and one-to-one option to support our peer and family supports in connecting with specialized trained individuals. This is an entirely confidential relationship where we are able to support you in your health and wellness goals. It is not job coaching or supervision, and it's not employment counseling. This is an opportunity for our peer and family support specialists to get peer support for themselves. And as a glimpse of that, we have an incredibly stressful job. So let's all just take a quick mindful moment. This will be about 30 minutes of us just taking a deep breath. So I'd love for you to share another part of what we do in our virtual groups that we have twice a month is we have coaching questions that we share together as a group as a way to connect. And so I'd love for us to share in the chat, what makes you feel proud? It can be something in your life, just in general, what makes you feel proud. I know one of the things that makes me feel proud is being able to maintain my recovery and really take on healing the things that I've experienced in life and give my children a different life than what I experienced growing up. Really gives me a sense of pride and knowing that they will never experience those things. So what makes all of you proud? I'd love to see it in the chat. Overcoming obstacles, seeing others achieve a goal or accomplishment, kids and coworkers. Yes, those are amazing. Thank you. Kids in our jobs, compassion and love to help others. Yes, absolutely. That's why we do the work that we do. Well, without further ado, I'm so glad all of you joined us today. We have Michael Beltran, who's going to share his story of hope. He is a family support specialist here in our system. He is truly spectacular. I'm honored to know this individual. He's one of our trainers at the Arizona Peer and Family Career Academy. I've had the pleasure of training with him, as well as he trained me when I first started here as executive director. I actually attended one of his trainings, and then now we've since co-trained together, which has been phenomenal. Michael has a very powerful story to share with you, and I really hope that you take away his amazing power and resilience and the fantastic impact he continues to have on our system. So with no further ado, Michael, you're up.
Thanks, Haley. Gosh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to live up to that. Amazing, impactful. Those are strong words. So, hi, everyone. I'm glad to see you all show up and give me the time and space to be able to share some of my story. And I noticed there's a few familiar faces. So, hi again to everyone I do know. And to those I don't know, it's nice to see you all here. So I think for those who've gotten to know me, and for those of you who don't know me, where I'm at now is certainly not where I've been before. And when I share parts of my story, people usually can't, they seem in shock, thinking, how could he have been there? He doesn't seem like that person now. I get that often. I question it myself quite often too, and I wonder how I've came so far and what am I doing and what did I do to get here. You know, before though, before where I'm at now, back when I was younger, I didn't have a rough childhood, so to speak. I didn't have some I work with most of us here work with a lot of different individuals who have had some serious traumatic situations. And when I was younger, I don't feel that I really experienced that. It wasn't until I got older till I realized I maybe had. But I grew up in a semi-stable living environment, and my family did the best they could. I think that when there's a social understanding of what's normal for children and their behavior. And so I think I fall in line with that. And I would have my outbursts, I'd have my rebellious side, and even my experimentation of drugs at the time. That was something that we were doing when I was 12, 13. It seemed to be a part of the scene, in the 90s was an interesting time. And it, like I said, it seemed to be something of the scene. It was just a part of it. And so it really wasn't, I didn't see it at the time as a problem. Well, when I had lost my uncle when I was 13, he was a major support and a strong figure in my life. I took it very numbly, and I didn't think that I didn't think that I would take it as well as I had, but I also didn't I didn't dwell on it too long. And instead what I found was peace and comfort in using drugs. And therefore I started on my journey of numbing my feelings, so to speak, by the usage of drugs. At the time, I also didn't feel like I had a problem. I was moving forward in life with all my decisions being influenced under the influence. And I had dabbled in quite a few different drugs, including not just marijuana, but including LSD and methamphetamine and cocaine, and different pills and opioids, and so a variety of different things. and ended up dropping out of school and started to dabble a little bit further into the scene and started to get involved in reckless behavior that was catching me cases and charges. The way the system is set up, though, is that early on, when you get charges, usually it is truly a slap on the wrist and maybe some treatment, maybe some probation, unsupervised. There's hardly any accountability. And so what I found was that I could still do what I was doing, but I was not being punished for it. The consequences weren't really as bad as I thought they would be at that time. So moving forward, I would continue in the activities I did. Like I said, I dropped out of school and I landed on a drug of choice that I felt uh, suited my needs. And at the time, my needs were to refrain from responsibility. It was to mask any pain that I had in my life, from in and out of relationships to facing some harder familial relationships that I wasn't managing my relationships well. And so I settled on methamphetamine as my choice of drug, and would do other things along the way, but meth was my choice. And with that brought a whole different scene and mix of people that I was involved with. And those individuals certainly didn't have my best interests at heart, and I didn't have theirs either. So we perpetuated each other's addictions and behaviors to the point where it was all about getting high. And think that I know that I used to justify my usage as a way for me to be creative and a way for me to be smarter than other people. And I felt like I was doing everything I needed to do to do at the time. Even spiritually, my journey had traveled through so many different religions and sects of religions that I had no core values or understanding of principles or morals, or what's right and wrong. It didn't matter. As far as I was concerned, everything I did was right, and if you got in my way, then it was trouble for you. And so I wrecked a lot of relationships I had along the way. And along that journey, I had started getting further into the criminal side of things, and didn't really care who I was stealing from or who I was hurting to get what I wanted. The nittier grittier stuff that you might see on TV, I was involved in some of those things. And again, I didn't care who I hurt to get what I wanted. It was all about what I wanted at the time, and I didn't feel bad for it. Well, that turned into this long string of charges that I eventually had gotten, and charges from different states, because now I was traveling to different states. And I was if you ever see those movies about the con artists who do what they do, I'd gotten involved in that, and I was traveling in different states and doing those things, and catching charges in different states. And none of it really stuck with me. When I would get hemmed up or put in jail, I would pay for a lawyer, I would get out, and I'd be on my way. And so nothing, again, the consequences still they weren't holding me accountable, and neither was anybody else. And I certainly wasn't holding myself or anybody else accountable. So it was definitely a whirlwind of pain and chaos that I was causing along the way. And it didn't really stop until, for a brief moment, I had gotten sober. I had a house out in Oklahoma, and I would, I was engaged at the time, and I wanted a family, and I thought this will be what grounds me. This is what I need, is a family to keep me straight, responsibilities, this and that. And I was sober for about a month, and in the previous 10 plus years, I hadn't been sober for longer than a few hours. That's how often I would use. If I wasn't sleeping, I was high during almost every waking moment. And so for that month, I had a good run where I wasn't using it all. And something uh, tragic had happened between my fiance and I at the time. And what did I do to combat that? I didn't lean in. I didn't try and fix it. I didn't make space uh, to allow feelings to be had and make it better, or stick in with it long enough to see if it would get better. Because remember, all I ever did before to mask my pain was to use. And so consequently, I went back to using, and I went even further and harder than I had done before in the past. My my blaze of destruction ended when I was arrested in Florida for doing the theft and the forgery that I was doing across the country. And so what had happened was my bond was set at initially $500. Now, I keep in mind I'd been in jail already before, so I wasn't afraid of jail because I'd never stayed there for longer than a month. So I was okay with it. I just saw it as you're locked in a cell, you're with a few people, not a few people, you're with quite a few people that you're probably never going to see again once you get out, and I'll bond out and that'll be it. That's how it had always been. And my bond had been set so low that I posted it, and then I got booked for additional charges before they released me. And that bond I posted, and then I got booked for additional charges. So as I would go to get out, they kept hitting me with more charges, and my bond went from $500 to $120,000 over the course of 3 days, and then later had went up another $100,000 about a week or two later. I knew at that time that this was maybe a little more serious, so I should probably, buckle my shoes and really, really get with it mentally for the long run. Although I still thought there was a fighting chance. I was going to be released on. I was going to be released about 4 months later, and they told me I was on the release papers. I was leaving that night. And I was so happy because when I was getting out, I had already had a place lined up in town that I was going to go to. And I thought maybe this might be a turning point in my life. And when they called me to be released, they called my name. I had all my stuff packed and had it on my shoulder. And they said, Beltran. They open up my cell. I come to the door. I have all my stuff together. I tell my cellie, I say, all right, man, we'll see you on the other side, or maybe not, but I'm out of here, this and that. I'm like, you ready for me? We're good, release. And they said, no, leave your stuff, booking additional charges. And my heart hit the floor. I'm pretty sure it woke some people up. It hit so hard uh, to my stomach. Thinking about it now makes me ill, because I remember how hard it was to hear that. And when they took me up to booking, that's when they told me that I had 90 counts out of Arizona, that they were going to come extradite me. And I knew at that point that there was no getting out of this. This was something that I was about to face. So when they did extradite me, it was a long journey airplanes and through the airports and being cuffed and the whole thing. It was a lot. And I was tired when I got back to Arizona. I didn't give them any trouble during intake, which was far different than I had been in the past. Whenever I'd go through intake, I would give them a hard time. Uh, this time I didn't. I felt defeated and I felt like there was no way out. And I didn't really know what to do. And my family, in the meantime, who had never given up on me, was still on the sideline, just watching me go through this and not really knowing what to do either. So I I went through the proceedings. I ended up staying in that jail for another 8 or 9 months before I was actually sentenced. And for those that don't know, jail and prison are two different things. Jail is much more tense because you don't know what's going to happen. And there are less amenities in jail than there are compared to prison. Visitations are quite different. The temperature of everything is different. You don't go outside as much. There's a lot of major differences, but mainly tensions are high. And so there's a lot of fights, and which at the time early on in my incarcerated phase, I wasn't concerned about so much, and wasn't concerned about getting hurt or anything like that physically. I just wanted to get out of there. But when I was sentenced, that's when I was more afraid because I had been in jail before and knew what to expect. I hadn't been to prison, and all I knew was what I knew from TV. And I would ask people what it was like in prison to try and paint the picture. And I was advised well, but it certainly didn't prepare me for how I would feel emotionally when I got there or mentally. So when I did go into prison, I went in with a mindset of fear and nervousness and not really knowing what to expect. When I first touched down on the yard, I was told that I had to link up with a race. I'm not a racist person by any means or prejudice. I did not know the segregated politics that they had, but I was told that I had to link up with a race, and naturally, I went to the Hispanic race, and I learned very quickly that because everything's segregated, that there were these deeper layers of politics where you couldn't sit on other races' beds. You couldn't watch their TVs. If you gambled with them, you had to make sure to pay your debts, because if one thing starts between one race and another, there could be riots because of it. And all these different things, these inner workings of prison that I had no idea about, were coming to light. And it was so new to me. I had to learn it because that's me. I had to learn it and I had to understand it to avoid it all. But there was no avoiding it. 2 weeks into my sentence, there was a riot. Thankfully, it was not one where I had gotten hurt. But I knew at that time when that riot happened that this place was not under a higher authority's control. This place was ran by the inmates. And that scared me because I know how I was at the time and how I could care less about other people and during my reckless time. Meanwhile, there's other people surrounding me, thousands of other people surrounding me that could care less, and they were in there doing their time. They had already worked through whatever emotional stuff they were working through, and they were doing their time, and many were using drugs and still involved in criminal activities while inside. And for me, it was so beyond me at the time. I didn't know what else to do, so I kind of shrunk into myself. And now I'm several months sober and having a clearer mind of thinking, okay, what the hell am I going to do while I'm here? So I read a lot. I watched TV, I worked out, I did my best to mind myself, but the entire time there's always that feeling of, gosh, something could happen. And certainly in front of me, it wasn't uncommon to walk out of the dormitory there and see somebody getting their head kicked in by 12 other people, or seeing the yard being locked down and there being several people in the middle of the yard going at it, or right in front of me, individuals having their heads smashed into the lockers. That wasn't uncommon. That happened quite often. So certainly I minded my P's and Q's to avoid conflict. Uh, but there was a deeper inner working going on within me. And I feel that there was something spiritually happening within me. And I didn't really know what it was, but I knew that I wanted to keep digging further and deeper. And now I'm not using drugs to mask any emotions or pain. Now I'm facing this head on, this fear, this nervousness, this sadness, these feelings of anxiety and depression. I am facing them head on without any help of drugs. And it is this wild circus constantly going on physiologically, and in my mind and in my heart. There are things that are going on that I can not really manage or navigate, like I never managed or navigated before. And all while in a place that is surrounded by others who are experiencing these things, and others who are acting out on these things, on these feelings. About a year and a half into my sentence, and I was sentenced to 7 years with an ADOC with 5 years probation. So about a year and a half in, I started to get involved in teaching, and I didn't really think much of it, but I started to have a change of mind and thinking, gosh, I could probably be doing something better now. Keep in mind, I'm sober now for a couple years in, and I'm starting to, as my mind is no longer clouded and it's filtering out all of its stuff, I'm starting to think rationally and talk rationally, articulate myself better, and I'm people are coming to me for suggestions and advice and a listening ear, and I'm providing peer support when I had no idea what peer support was, just naturally coming from my heart. And I started to think, gosh, I could maybe do something while I'm here. So I did. I got my GED. I started teaching GED while I was taking my GED classes, which according to the administrators, that had never happened before. So I thought it was something special. And maybe when some hear it now, they think, well, huh, what are you doing it was in prison. I mean, is it really that much of accomplishment? Well, hell yeah, it was. For me, it was. To hear that I was the only one that had did it. Yeah, I don't care where it was. I was excited and I was proud of myself. And I started facilitating courses. I started taking college courses. I had got on the wildland fire crew and the structural fire crew, which allowed me even more opportunities to learn and to practice what I was learning. Uh, who would have thought I would be trained as a firefighter while in there? Who would have thought I would be eating at a restaurant down the street, downtown Tucson, and nobody would know that the night before I was in prison and I was sitting there eating, eating food at a restaurant dressed in civilian clothes. Nobody knew unless you knew. And so I got to experience that and see really what I was able to do while I was there. Before getting out, I was offered an opportunity to go to the Second Chance program, which, for those that don't know, it's a facility in Buckeye that they've changed one of the prisons to be a release program. So 60 to 90 days before getting released, you're able to go to this this prison unit that is filled with a lot of programs. You're able to use the internet, the telephone to do job interviews over the phone. Uh, you're able to schedule these things out. You're able to take other programs, get your CDL preparation, all these great things. Plus, they have a football field with real grass. And I hadn't felt real grass on my toes for the longest time. And so I took advantage of that. I did really well. And the entire time while in prison, I felt an overwhelming sense of fear that never went away. And my biggest fear was that I was not going, as much good as I was doing, I was not confident that they were going to release me. Because unfortunately, Arizona is known for giving people additional charges before being released. And I wasn't in prison for everything bad or criminal that I've done in my life. So I was concerned about that. The only thing I did, I guess, to mask it throughout my time was to dive into projects and teaching and facilitating and bettering myself and exercising to cope with the possibility that they might not ever let me go. When the day came that they did let me go, up to every single moment, up to when I got off that van and met with my family, I felt like my entire body was tight and stiff, and I wasn't really breathing. And when I thought when I got into my family's vehicle that I was going to take a deep breath and be done and put it behind me. And unfortunately, that's not where my story suddenly gets better. I mean, really, it did get better while I was in prison and I had gotten sober and I did all these great things. What I've learned though is that that's when a whole different chapter of my life began, because the day that I got home, I still couldn't really breathe comfortably the entire day. I had to meet with probation officers, two different ones, one from Florida, one from Arizona, a parole officer. So I was on two probations and one parole. And so I had three different officers that I had to report to, and I had to do a slew of things on day 1, 2, and 3 that for those who, now I understand, but for those who are being released, they are expected to meet all these terms that they have to do when they get out, and it's almost unmanageable without the support that I had. I don't know if I would have done it. I like to believe that I could have been able to, but it was hard. And shortly thereafter, I had found a job after being told no for about 50 different job applications, places that wanted me to manage their facilities. They wanted me in leadership roles. I nailed the interviews. Were coming back to me and saying, sorry, we can't bring you on board because your record. I wasn't discouraged though at the time. I was happy to get the job at the dollar store that I had got. I was happy because I was home. And so I thought then that my mind and my feelings would shift to being in a happy sense. It's behind me now. I can focus on the future, but it still wasn't done. I found myself going home by myself and laying on my floor and crying myself to sleep. I found myself driving and bawling for like no apparent reason. And I didn't know really what was going on. I think part of it was I was thankful to be home and out of that place. And the other part of it was that I was scared to death of what the present and the future held. and I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't really feel like I was myself. I had met a counselor uh, who had turned me on to peer support because I was telling him that I wanted to go back into the prisons and give people a story of hope that they can get through it, and that they, that I can help them if they get out. Then I wanted to offer my help for nothing, for free, and just for being just somebody out of my heart. I just wanted to do that, just give some sort of message. And my my counselor was taken aback by that because most people wanted to put it behind them. But he turned me on to peer support and helped get me enrolled in classes to take the peer support certification. And so I did. I didn't know what it was. I just went off his recommendation and went and did it. Turns out it was completely different than what I thought it was. And I thought that I never worked with individuals with serious mental illnesses, never never even took my own diagnosis or the diagnosis of family members that I have seriously. I chalked it up to just something on a paper, just kind of an illness, like a cold kind of thing, something that could be treated. And uh, when I had gotten out of the peer support training, I thought, okay, I'm going to see if this turns into anything. And sure enough, I was contacted by my current coordinator um, at Copa Health, and found out that they were interested in me. And what really set this place apart was when I was doing the interview, I was told that they wanted me because I had just came out of prison 2 months earlier and spent almost 7 years there. And it wasn't a problem that I was on probation and that I didn't have a fingerprint clearance card, because they would work with me to get it. That being told that you are valued for almost for all of the bad that you've been through, that there is value in that, and the consequences that you've suffered from it, that there is value in that, was one of the most powerful things that has ever been bestowed on me. And I feel like that was a turning point. And so I took the job offer, and I was able to start working for Copa Health. And during my time, I was doing things that I never knew that I'd be able to. I got the support from my leadership to get my fingerprint clearance card, which to this day has been the hardest thing that I've ever done, even over getting sober, because I had to relive my cases and my experience of my chronological history of just recklessness and criminal activities. I had to relive it all and see a judge to get it granted and everything, and get the dispositions from the case. It was a lot, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done. And I thought that my job, I have to have it to keep my job, so it was a lot of pressure on me, but I did it, and I was happy. And to this day, I'm happy for it. Um, in my department where I'm at now, I am valued. I've been promoted since to the family support specialist, and now I help the family members of the members that I was serving as a peer support specialist. I've been invited to sit on boards with the Mental Health Awareness Coalition, been invited to train with the PFCA, been invited to access summits and meeting and networking with people who see value in me, people who I thought I wouldn't think that I would be able to stand next to. I consider all of you here and those that I work with and individuals who I network with as so far up here, like doctors, like status with, I see value in that. And now I'm standing next to you and you're asking me my opinion. And so that it means a lot to me. And even now, though, there are still many times, this morning included, that I find myself crying to myself in the car because I'm still trying to figure myself out. I've been sober now almost 9 years. On April 4th, it'll be 9 years. And I still feel feelings of wanting to use. Um, I still feel the overwhelming sensation of like, gosh, are they going to send me back to prison uh, for running a red light on accident? And I still go through those. But what gives me hope is that I have a strong support system that I've worked on building, and they've been there with me, and they believe in me. And it's taken me a long time to believe in myself, but I believe in myself as well. Um, I would say that one thing that I look forward to in the future is being able to support individuals who have gone through the same or similar experience, and especially transitioning from such a harsh environment back out into the community. I'd love to be a part of that, and because there's certainly a need for it. And I think that if all of us here were to really consider what maybe I was talking about today and do some research on their own, but consider the challenges that people face after coming out of incarceration, they would see that there's a lot more to it than you do the crime, you do the time, you get out and you be a productive member of society, or you don't. It's not really black and white like that. I've learned that that is a traumatic experience that I've endured, and I still face the consequences of it today, and probably will the rest of my life. But thankfully, I have the support of all of you here listening to me, and the support of my family, and have built that to hang on and keep moving forward day by day. So thank you everyone for taking the time to listen to me today. With that, Haley, you want to take it back over?
Thank you, Michael. Want to see if anybody has any questions for Michael real quick before we wrap up. We've got time for a question or two.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Denise.
Hey, Michael, thank you so much. This is so traumatic. Like, my question might be a little bit traumatic, so I'm not sure if it's appropriate for this format or not. But so I'm biracial, and racial trauma has definitely defined my life. So my question is about the segregation inside the prisons, and I was just curious: is there anything being done? Is there any kind of policies or like mandates? Like, how is this just being allowed? It's so toxic. And thank you for sharing about it.
Yes, thank you for your question. It is very toxic, and especially for individuals who don't roll like that and go into the system, because out here, even if you're doing crime, you're probably doing it with just anybody else who's willing to do it with you. So when you go in there, the whole segregation thing, it seems like, I don't know, aged, like we've gotten past that. In there, though, the reasoning why that had been instilled about 20, 30 years ago was because there was a lot more sexual assaults and violence happening amongst any races. So different races were segregated to protect their people, so to speak. But with that came all these inter-politics along with it. There are things that are being done to combat that, and one of them is at the Second Chance Center, where individuals are not encouraged, but they don't have a say in whether whoever they get bunked with, and if they raise any fuss about it, they kick them off the yard and kick them back to a regular yard where it is segregated and where there are the politics. Because of the Second Chance Center, they don't stand for those kind of politics. There's less people. It's more manageable for the staff that's on hand, and they can manage that kind of thing. Their thing is, look, let's put this prison politics stuff behind you. Let's get you set up and try and help you to not come back. And so they're really about it. And they are trying to instill that in other facilities as well. I hope that answered your question.
Do you have any suggestions for anybody that wants to advocate on that? Because that's like a human rights issue. And I know internationally, American prisons are condemned by like Amnesty International. And, you know, it's just like gets to me. If you have any thoughts on how to advocate, or maybe I'll follow up with you later.
You definitely could follow up with me later if you like. I would say, though, that advocating really starts with you and the people around you. That's where you're going to have the most impact initially, but you can always get involved in other groups who are trying to have more movement and have more of a voice. You can always reach out to legislation. You can advocate in different ways. And my best experience was when I was the one calling the prison units a week out of prison and asking if I could come back, calling the wardens, talking to the CO3s. And I was like, hey, when can I come back? And they're like, you just left. You need to wait a little bit. So I had the best experience with getting in contact, but my boots were in the ground and I was making it happen.
Yeah, and I will say that Arizona Department of Corrections is working on revising policies and having trainings for their officers. But as many of us know, change within government takes time. And this is also something that has been a part of the culture and the conditioning within prisons for a long time. And it's not something that's just here in Arizona. It's within prison culture across the United States. And so it's a very large issue and one that hopefully over time will continue to be addressed. But I do know that our state I was just on a call with Arizona Department of Corrections, and we specifically talked about this issue, and they recognize the challenge that it creates for community reentry, particularly, right? Because as a community and society, we don't operate by prison politics, as they call it. And so making sure that we address that so we can support individuals in a holistic way for reentry. We have time for maybe one more question. We've got some things in the chat, Michael, just thanking you for sharing. I personally want to thank you so much for sharing your story with such vulnerability and really being open with everybody as to your journey with us. It is incredibly important as peer and family support specialists that we are open with our journey, not only with our members, but also within ourselves. I think so often, right, as we're in our work, we are in the trenches. And so we're in the middle of the work that sometimes we don't always get to see those stories of hope. And so thank you, Michael, for being able to be our beacon of hope today, and I appreciate it. Before everyone leaves, I would love to share with you our April Lunch and Learn. As we were just talking about trauma, right, and the impacts of trauma, we are going to have our next Lunch and Learn on trauma-informed care. And this is not going to be your typical run-of-the-mill trauma-informed care training. This is going to be some real ways that we can incorporate trauma-informed care principles and approaches as peer and family support specialists. I'm going to be leading this training with what are some things that we can say and do differently in our work that we can actually implement. You know, it's more than the question from what's wrong to what happened, but really diving deeper and how we approach things, other questions we can ask. You know, so much goes into a trauma-informed care approach, more than just that one question. And so I'm excited, and hopefully you all will be able to join us in April. Also on March 10th, from 5:30 to 7, we're going to be getting together for a peer and family support mixer at the Hamburger Works. It's going to be here in Phoenix. Don't worry, we'll be doing one in the north and the south soon if you're coming from the northern or southern regions. But here in central Arizona, I picked a location that was close to some of our peer and family run locations. We're going to be at the Hamburger Works. PFCA is going to be covering appetizers. It's free food. Who wants to turn down free food? Hopefully not all of you. So we'll hopefully see you there after work on a Thursday night. It's just going to be an opportunity for us to connect in person. It's been a while. So hopefully we will see you there. Also, we have our forensic family support course. Michael is going to be a trainer for this course. So you most definitely want to join it now, right? So this is open. It's designed specifically for our family support specialists, but we will be taking our peer support specialists for this course. Just let us know and send us your certificate. The courses are just ever so slightly different, so it will have a little bit more of a family support ring to it. This will be on March 15th and 16th from 12 to 4 p.m. We'll be going over the court system, best practices, and how do we provide support for individuals who have that justice experience. Also, we will have a Saturday supervisor course. And so if you are a supervisor or you're interested in becoming a supervisor, I hope you'll spend a Saturday afternoon with me. This is going to be a great time to build up our skills, have some great conversation with one another on kind of the roles, expectations, productivity. How do we lead motivationally with a coaching and mentoring leadership style? What are some reasonable accommodations, right? We know as we have lived experience and we supervise those with lived experience, we sometimes have to provide those accommodations, and how do we get creative and ensure we are supporting our people in the best way possible? And so hopefully you will be able to join us on this Saturday. And hopefully this is what you didn't come for, but if you did, that's okay. Thanks for hanging out with us and hearing Michael's story. We have a raffle. We've got a $20 Amazon gift card, and we are going to switch our screen over to our prize wheel. So I have all of your names already put in here. And if you are the winner, if you could please email me your, oh, pretty close, Emma. Is Emma still here? Yes, okay. Emma, congratulations. If you could please send me your good mailing address, and I will send you your gift card. That's going to be haley@azpfca.org. And thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. Please, if you haven't already, sign up for our newsletter at PFCA. This is where you'll get upcoming announcements on future courses. Like us on all of our social media. We've got Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. We also post the recording of all of our lunch and learns on YouTube. So if your coworkers didn't get a chance to join, or there's future lunch and learns that maybe it doesn't work for your schedule, you can always check out that recording. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Michael, for sharing your story with everyone. I appreciate the work that you are doing as a family support specialist. I thank you for being a Peer and Family Career Academy trainer. You are phenomenal, and I wish you so much incredible luck in your future. I know you are going amazing places. And thank you all for joining us, and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.
Thanks, everybody.